This video is on molecular compounds and how to name them and write formulas for them. So, quick review, molecular compounds have covalent bonds. So remember, covalent bonds are sharing. We talked about these being polar or nonpolar previously. So they are sharing electrons, and this is going to happen between two nonmetals. So if we have two nonmetals, that means we're going to have two things that both have a negative charge. So we can't name them like ionic compounds or figure out their formulas like ionic compounds because we're not balancing charges at all. The balancing essentially comes from them sharing electrons. Like for example, like if I just had, and this isn't one we would name necessarily, but if I had like chlorine, okay, that bonded with another chlorine, okay, one has 7, the other has 7. Together, if they share the 2 in the middle here, they each have 8. So this is that covalent bond. So it's not about balancing charges. So we name them and then reverse write formulas by looking at these Greek prefixes in their names. And these are the same prefixes that you would use if you were naming hydrates. So let's quickly write down what these prefixes are. So 1 through 10. And if you have room, I'm gonna move them down here. Okay, so the prefixes. All right, if you have just one atom, it's mono. If you have 2, it's di. 3 is tri. Okay, these probably make sense, familiar to you. 4, think of like what we did before with tetrahedral is tetra. 5 is penta. 6 is hexa. 7 is hepta. 8 is octa. 9 is nona or nona. And 10 is deca. So these are the prefixes. So so they're going before the element name that you're going to use, and you're going to have to know these. A couple rules with this. One is that you're not going to put 2 O's or an A and an O together. So you wouldn't write monooxide. You wouldn't have 2 O's. All right. Or like pentaoxide. You wouldn't do that either. So what you'll do is you'll just write monoxide with 1 O or pentoxide and you just drop the A. So those are like a couple simple rules with that. The first element, the ending stays the same. So if your first element is nitrogen and you have 2 of them, it would just be dinitrogen. You just put the prefix in front. And you don't use, and I don't know what happened, there's a typo here, you don't use mono with the first element. So first element, name stays the same if there's only one of them. Like if there's 1 nitrogen, you don't say mono nitrogen, you just write nitrogen. So mono is only going to go with a second element if there's 1. And the second element name, always the ending changes to IDE. Just like before when we were doing binary compounds, so 2 things in an ionic compound, ionic naming. All right, so let's do some examples. All right, go below my prefixes here. All right, so let's start by naming. So let's say my substance is Cl2O7. All right, so I'm just going to plug prefixes in front of the element names, and I'll change the second element name ending to "ide." So I have chlorine for my first element. So this is dichlorine. And then I have 7 oxygens. 7 is hepta. And we drop the A, right? A with O don't go together. So it's hept, ox, and I change the ending to "ide." So dichlorine heptoxide. All right, let's try another one. Nitrogen and oxygen. So let's just do NO. So with this one, we don't put mono with the first element. So it's nitrogen. I don't say mononitrogen. I just write nitrogen. And then I do use mono with the second element. And I drop one of the O's, right? We don't say monoxide. And it's just monoxide. Just like carbon monoxide. Same thing. That's one you've probably said and heard a few times. All right, so let's do the reverse. What if I give you the name? And it is sulfur hexafluoride. Okay, so we don't have to worry about formulas, charges, anything like that. I just have to know what my elements are. Sulfur, fluoride tells me it's fluorine. And then I just look at prefixes to tell me how many. So it doesn't have a prefix for sulfur, which means there's one. Hexa means 6. So I have SF6. All right, and then let's try one more. Let's do dinitrogen trioxide. Okay, so I have this, right? Nitrogen is N. Di means I have 2. Tri means I have 3. Oxide is oxygen. This is N2O3. So this is how you name molecular compounds and how you write formulas for them, by just looking at the prefixes. So make sure you know those 10 prefixes.